Good Monday morning, everyone. How are you today? I hope you had a great weekend. It's Cassandra Williamson with the Transgender and Diverse Veterans of America Action Group. And I want to bring some clarity to this, really right straight up on the very front end of this. All the opinions expressed here are mine and no one else. They do not necessarily represent any particular organization, agency, department, government, or any other person or group of people. They're mine. And if you're under the age of 18, you need to leave this site. All right, so what we're going to do today, the first thing we want to do is kind of jump right straight into some things that are really important, like Project 2025. So I'm going to take the next several episodes of this program and actually tear into each section of the Project 2025 policy document and look at it from the Heritage Foundation, published this year, 2023. So we're going to look at it in kind of a little bit of detail and just make each segment of this program, each program that we do this week, specific to a chapter or section within that document that talks about anything to do with gender, sex, sexuality, LGBT people, diversity, any of those things, families, church, all of it. We want to look at all of it because really the whole document is nothing more than an attempt to, I'm calling it minority wash. It's whitewashing the whole country, but they're just minority washing it. And they want to achieve this thing that they're calling a colorblind society. But you know that is just a fallacy to even assume that is possible to do. So I'm going to call it out every chance I can. So that's what they want to do in this whole document is this one and the stuff that's going on out there with Dr. Roberts is the president of Heritage Foundation, as well as Christopher Rufo, Matt Walsh, all this bunch out there over under the talking heads over there, who have such large audiences. But that's primarily what I want to do this week is just jump right straight into it. And this first session will be on the introduction. And then we'll just go right straight off into it. And I hope you'll bear with me as we jump through from one thing to another. And I want to make sure that you're aware of this, that is what we're trying to do, is make sure that this whole country is aware that this document, this book that they've got here, this conservative promise, is bad for the country, the whole country, the entire nation, not just any one particular part of this country, but the entire nation. This thing is bad for the country, folks. And if you don't believe it, well, you need to read it and take a look at it. Just go take a look. All right, so let's just jump right into sharing the screen from over on the other side. And we'll do that now. We'll go over to this one and there and share. All right, so this first document, the first part of this is, let me just back up over here really quickly to this page. This comes from this website. What we're going to talk about today comes from here. You can download the information for free on there. Just don't buy the book. There's no point in it. They got $22 million set aside to make this happen. And so this is what they're saying, and this is how they're going to accomplish it. And this is what the presidential candidates over on the far right, over on the right, many of them have already agreed to all of this. They already are well aware of. You start seeing the narrative showing up in their campaigns across the country, wherever they may be, each one trying to be worse than this document. That's what's going on. They're all trying to see who can be the baddest of the bad. Okay. And that's what's going on right now. And this document is kind of the thing that is setting the groundwork for that. 80 other conservative organizations joined Heritage Foundation in putting together this Project 2025 and help spreading the narrative out there. And between them, as a last count anyway, they had put $22 million toward making it happen. What are they going to use $22 million for? Well, a lot of it, they've created a training program. It's all up here in this little training icon or the tab at the top right there, the training tab, where you can go in and, they'll train you and vet you and make sure that you can get a security clearance. And that way that when the new president steps in, if a conservative wins in November of 2024, well, then on January the 20th of 2025, they want to be able to say, President so-and-so, we've done a lot of the work for you. We've vetted a bunch of people who are ready and trained and prepared to step in across the whole of the executive branch of the U.S. government. And that, they just want to make the job easier for this new president and just move in a bunch of people that, they've already had training. But obviously $22 million goes a lot further than that. They're going to spend a lot of time on promoting these different narratives that they have out there. And we're going to jump into that in just a minute. All right. So this is Project 2025. This is their website. You can get it at project2025.org. Go check it out. And, go find out. Just go out there and see how horrendous this thing is and how terrifying it is. And it should be terrifying for every American in this country, including, and now look, you'll see a lot of people out there saying these are real Americans and these are the true Americans. And this is you're anti-American, all this crap. No. They're still Americans. They just have different ideological views. Okay. And that's fine. That's what makes this country so great, is that we serve as veterans. We serve for their right to believe the crap that even the stuff that attempts to do away with us. We still serve for that right, for them to have that belief. They're wrong, but still we serve for that right, for them to believe what they want, to follow whatever ideology they wish, to live as they wish, as long as it causes no harm to another person. Now, another American. So now, though, that's the line that is kind of the point from which we can start looking at things. When something harms another group of Americans, then that thing is wrong. Whatever it is that caused that harm to that other group of Americans, then that thing needs to be reevaluated. It's not right. So let's take a look at this now. So we're going to go right straight into the forward. And this whole segment will be nothing but the forward, okay? And then, like I said before, we'll cover the rest of the chapters where there's all kinds of those words before in there. Oh, but I need to do one thing for you. Let me go down here and pull this up because I need to make sure we do this properly. All right. Go down here and I'm going to read the mandate. It's going to pull it up to the top. And let's just be clear, this is the Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise. It's by the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025, a presidential transition project. Okay, copyright 2023 by the Heritage Foundation. Make sure that, and it's located at 214 Massachusetts Avenue Northeast, Washington, D.C. I've been there. Walked right in their office. Only the receptionist and 2 security guards spoke to me. Anyway, those are the people I spoke to, too. Anyway, so I want to make sure we get this out there. This is their product, okay? Make it very clear about that, but we're going to just jump into it and talk about it, all right? So which one did I just eliminate here? Oh, I eliminated the wrong one. No, I didn't. Got rid of the right one. Okay, here. So now we're going to jump into the forward, folks. And occasionally I'll drop back over and check to see if there are any comments or whatever. But, this is the forward. It was written by Dr. Kevin Roberts, PhD. He happens to be the president of Heritage, stepped into that role. I think it's right after President Trump left office, sometime right after that past couple of years. He came to Heritage from Texas, a similar organization, state level organization to Heritage that was in Texas, very ultra conservative, far right, Christian nationalism kind of stuff. And that's where he comes from, that background. So he is now running the Heritage Foundation, this national conservative organization that's 50 years old this year. And they have been producing these Mandate for Leadership things every 4 years. And the first one they did was for President Reagan in 1981 when he said, "So help me God," on January the 20th of 1981. They handed off this document to President Reagan. And he was able to get about 60% of it, a little bit, about 2/3 of it, roughly, accomplished in the first 180 days or so. So they had built up this way. They knew that they could do this kind of thing, even without any kind of real strategic depth to it. That was naive. That whole document was not very strategically organized. It was just a statement. This on Project 2025 takes that Mandate for Leadership and turns it on its head. This thing is beautifully organized. I like the structure of it. It's something that we should follow. It's a strategic plan. It's got it laid out right there. Every little thing we need to do, or they need to do, they've got it laid out by office in the executive branch of the U.S. government. This one puts that thing, make that thing look like kindergarten work. Makes the one they gave for Reagan like kindergarten work. This one right here is like postdoctoral level. Okay, so this is pretty darn high stuff. They did a really good job. It's beautiful. Just the content sucks. Okay. All right. So this forward, as I said, written by Dr. Kevin Roberts. He has a PhD in early American history. All right. So I'm just going to go through and find a few things. This is the second paragraph on page 1. Okay. And just listen to this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time elaborating, except on a few points. Well, no, I should take that back. I do talk a lot. Okay. Look at America under the ruling class, or the ruling and cultural elite today. Inflation is ravaging the family budgets. Drug overdose deaths continue to escalate, and children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism, with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. There is so much ignorance in that one statement there, Dr. Roberts. First thing is, you know how this works? This is a psychological warfare kind of thing. This is psyops. It's what they've done here. The first part of it is many of us know that inflation is high. We're having to pay more now. That burger that I bought a year ago, it now costs like 3 times as much. No, 2 times as much. It's pretty darn high. We know about the inflation. We know the drug overdose deaths continue to escalate across all socio-demographic categories or intersectional groups, all of them. And then since those two things are roughly or approximately true, then this next one they're hoping you will think is also true. And that's why it's in the same sentence. Because they're thinking that if they can get you to agree with the first 2 items, if A and B, then maybe you will accept that C is true as well. But C is not true. C is not true, folks. Toxic normalization of transgenderism. First thing is, transgender people aren't an ideology. And whoever started that ideological kind of description of things back in academia a number of years ago, you really screwed us over when you did that, because we aren't an ideology. There's nothing about us that's an ideology. We have all kinds of ideologies, and we're representative of the entire nation. Within the transgender community in America, we're representative of numerous, of all the ideologies that are out there. I'm talking about conservatism, republicanism, liberalism, whatever, socialism, communism. I mean, it's all in there. Nativism, it's all in this group, just like it is in the rest of the country, period. Transgender people, by definition, are not an ideology of themselves. I'm not an ideology. My ideological views are more establishment liberal than anything else, with some progressive leanings, but I come out of a deep conservative background. Yeah. So, I mean, I've got a lot of this stuff. I've got ideological stuff all wrapped up within me, but I'm still not, as a transgender person, being transgender is not the ideology. And then they say this other thing that just comes across every time in any group. Anytime they want to scapegoat a group of people, of Americans, every time they'll drag it in some way into pornography and all kinds of stuff that's attacking the kids and impacting the communities. They've done it with every minority they didn't want around, that they were threatened by. Starting with the Chinese back in the 1890s. They started making all these claims about that. They were coming here to get the jobs. They were stealing the women, and they were taking kids and all this kind of stuff. And they tried to run them out of the country after they had built the railroad. This stuff has been going on. They do the same thing with any group that they don't like. Every time. So you got the Chinese, and then you got African Americans in the late 40s, early 50s, trying to being integrated into the military. And then segregation comes along, when you have Wallace standing in the schoolhouse door saying, "Not on my life," whatever he said, I don't know. But he wanted to maintain segregation between the races. And they used the same arguments then. Same stuff. Crime, pornography, going after your women and children. Same stuff every time. That's what they've done. And they learned from that. They know that narrative works for them. Okay? Yes, really. This is just, this is page 1, the forward. All right. And then we go down here to this next part. Moreover, low-income communities are drowning in addiction and government dependence. The same old crap that has been going on. The same thing is being used as a trope against every minority for the longest time. Same thing, same arguments. Seems like they would just stop after a while because we're catching on to all their little narrative tricks and their psyops tricks. We see what they're doing. They've done it and they know it works. But here's the thing. Low-income communities are drowning in addiction. For one thing, let's just say that you can drop off the low-income side and said American communities are drowning in addiction. It impacts every socioeconomic level within this country. It's not just low income. It's everyone. And then government dependence, that goes on all the time. They're always trying to cut that stuff out. I mean, they tried it after Social Security was implemented and stuff like that back in the 50s. And Eisenhower told them, nope, we're not going to try to cut that. Social Security, he said, that's people have an expectation for that now. And he was a Republican. And he said, we're not going to do it. I think he wrote that in a letter to his brother in like 1954 or somewhere right around that period of time. Okay, so, and then it goes on to say, and contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of 1970s radical chic to build the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening. I grew up in the 70s. I don't remember it being radical chic, but the phrase radical chic is actually from Tom Wolfe, who wrote something in like 1970 about this, the radical chic. I think it was 1970. But anyway, but they're trying to call it the Great Awakening. Kevin, that's just stupid, son. It really is. Kevin Roberts. All right. Oh my gosh. Let's just go right on down. I've got a few things highlighted down through here that I wanted to talk about. And we're not even all the way through the forward, folks. Conservative promise. All right, here's the conservative promise. This is what they want to do. They're going to have the conservative promise activated around the country, and particularly in the executive branch of the U.S. government, along four broad fronts. Four broad fronts, folks. First one is restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. Secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. Each of these has a whole commentary associated with them that I could give you, but they also go in and describe each one of these separately. So let's just go right on down the line. I mean, their definition of family is totally, completely different. I mean, they don't include single moms, single fathers, same sex or same gender couples, anything like that, or adoptive parents. Nothing like that is included within this restore the family thing. And then protect our children. Obviously, they're doing the same psyop stuff. We know the narrative is just so tiring to see them say this crap every time. But it works for them. And it works to help bring across some people who may be in the middle politically, kind of independent, right there in the middle. These are the kind of words that are used to bring the middle over to the right. And they know that. And it has worked successfully. And the second thing they want to do is dismantle the administrative state. Yep. That is not their top priority. The first one is just number one up here, obviously. Defend our nation's sovereignty, secure our. Now, this tells you how they're blending church and state. There is no separation in their mind. This is Christian nationalism. And they say it's just religion, acknowledging all religions, but in reality, it's still Christian nationalism. That's what this is. It's Christian nationalism, dominionism. And that's what they think they have a right to do that. And Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, actually has said that repeatedly over the past several weeks. And in some of the work that he has done in the past within Louisiana before he went to the House of Representatives. So these are the things that have all blended together. I mean, government and God. Secure our God-given individual rights to live freely. Obviously, that doesn't apply to anyone like me. or you, or any American for that matter. If you don't agree with them, this doesn't apply to you. What our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. Obviously, what they're trying to get you to think is that if they can get all this other stuff accomplished, then anyone who doesn't agree with them, they're not entitled to those blessings of liberty. They're not entitled to live freely. And they're serious about this. So let's just jump right on down. I'm going to scroll down to the next section of this. Promise number 1. Here we go. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. This is on page 4, just so you know. All right, so here we go. So let's take a look at it. These are the things that I highlighted just so we can talk about them. These are the mediating institutions that serve as the building blocks of any healthy society. Here you go. This is what they call healthy societies. Their definition of marriage, their definition of family, work, church, meaning their definition of it, dominionist Christian nationalism, and school. And then they also add volunteering over here too. You got to be, these are the things: marriage, family, work, church, school, volunteering. And then they do the one thing that just pisses me off in a big way, and that is the name real people give to the things we do together as community and not government. Real people? All people are real people, aren't they? Yes, they are. Without a doubt, they're all real people. Jeez. Our lives are full of interwoven, overlapping communities, and individual and collective happiness depend upon them. Now, look, the one word you'll never see in here is intersectional. But that's what it is. Our lives are full of interwoven, intersectional, overlapping communities and identities. But, they don't want to put that in there, though. But that's really what it is, right? Okay, today, if I get my cursor just to stay in one place. Today, the American family is in crisis. 40% of all children are born to unmarried mothers. So those people make good mothers. Yeah. Including more than 70% of Black children. Okay. Stop incarcerating all of their husbands or their boyfriends or their spouses or whomever. Stop incarcerating them for bullshit stuff. Okay. There is no government program that can replace, and here, this kind of tells you too. There is no government program that can replace the hole in a child's soul cut out by the absence of a father. For one thing is, they start throwing soul in here and you automatically know they're talking religion. Yeah. Absence of a father. No. The single moms are doing a great job out there. Single dads are doing a great job out there. Same-sex couples, same gender couples, or unmarried families, they're all doing a good job out there, folks. It's fatherlessness is one of the principal sources of American poverty, crime, mental illness, teen suicide, substance abuse, rejection of the church, and high school dropouts. They said a lot in that one. So many of the problems government programs are designed to solve, but can't, are ultimately problems created by the crisis of marriage and the family. The world has never seen a thriving, healthy, free, and prosperous society where most children grow up without their married parents. If current trends continued, we are headed towards social implosion. Okay, well. Oh, my God. Let's go on down. This is the bottom of page 4. In the forward, the next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with, now here's the thing, and many times you've heard me say this in other programs and things like that. They want to delete these terms, remove them, erase them, delete them, excise them from the whole of the federal government. Actually, they want to do it across the whole country. They don't want these words out there. They want a colorblind society. And actually what they're saying is they want a minority blind society. They included everybody in this one. every American family is going to be impacted by this. Every American, now my definition of family, obviously, whether that's your born family or your natural family or your chosen family, it doesn't matter. All of us are going under attack from this thing right here. This starts with deleting the term sexual orientation, gender identity, which SOGI is important. I'll mention that in just a second. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Let's go on down here, which is DE&I. Then you got gender, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitivity, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights. And then they say, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, regulation, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, piece of legislation that exists, folks. This is a serious militant statement. This one, going after everything, anything that is used to identify you as a person. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it, and they don't want to study it. And that's why I said grant. Because one of the biggest things out there is in science is we've known for quite a while actually, that there are such things as social determinants of health, where you grow up, where you grew up, where you live, your income status, your racial or ethnic or gender status, any of those identities, anything, any of those identities, what state you live in, where you live in that state. Those are social determinants of health that have an impact on your wellness, your health, your mental stability, all those kind of things. It has an impact on it. But if you can't do the research because you're stopping all this kind of stuff with grants, like the National Institute of Health does for the SOGI community, the sexual orientation, gender identity community, and other minority populations for that matter, this stops it. They don't even want to know that there's a problem. They want to be blind to the problems because, it makes them feel queasy or something. I don't know. They don't want to acknowledge that there are problems. They just want to sweep them away and under the rug because, it just makes them feel funny. All right. And then what they do say right here, this is the one also that really gets me, this part right here as well. Any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights. So there's a lot in that statement right there. And it's in the same sentence as all this other. It's that one sentence about a deletion, okay? Any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights. Do we have First Amendment rights? They don't think so. And they don't even think that we're Americans because, we're not real. Really? This is the height of arrogance and stupidity right there. Okay. And then let's go on down. Pornography manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children, for instance, is not a political Gordian knot inextricably binding up desperate claims about free speech, property rights, sexual liberation, child welfare. It has no claim to First Amendment protections. Oh my gosh, excuse me. Remember we talking about the Chinese people from the 1890s when they were working here helping build the railroad in the 1880s and 90s, railroads and stuff across the country. I think probably started in the late 70s, 1870s. But anyway, so the same kind of stuff has been used every time, except that they would just say pornography manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of the Chinese people, or let me just put any number in here, Chinese people, African Americans, or, gay people, lesbian people, transgender people, you name it. They'll throw it in there. And then they use the exact same stuff across through here every time. The difference is this time around, it has no claim to First Amendment protection. Don't you just love it? Don't you just love it, folks? Let me see. Its purveyors are child predators, misogynistic exploiters of women. Good Lord Almighty. How many times we've heard that over the past 150 years, right? Their product is as addictive as any illicit drug. and as psychologically destructive as any crime. Pornography should be outlawed. Remember, they tied pornography in the same sentence with transgender people. And you could put any minority population in there, and they would have said the same thing. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators, public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders, and telecommunications technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered. Wow. Okay. And let's just jump right on down. But before we can achieve, but even before we achieve that long-term goal, parents' rights as their children's primary educators should be non-negotiable in American schools. States, cities, counties, school boards, union bosses, principals, and teachers who disagree should be immediately cut off from federal funds. And then we jump into this one. The noxious tenets of critical race theory and gender ideology should be excised from curricula in every public school in the country. Need I say more? These people are wacko, folks. These theories poison our children, who are being taught on the one hand to affirm the color of their skin, that the color of their skin fundamentally determines their identity and even their moral status, while on the other they are taught to deny the very creatureliness that inheres to being human and consistent, accepting the givenness of our nature as men or women. These people are just way off their rockers, really. And then allowing parents or physicians to reassign the sex of a minor child is child abuse and must end. And they don't mean just children either. We're already seeing this push to do it with adults as well. They're going to grab one piece and then keep pushing, because their goal is to, make this a minority-free country. For public institutions to use taxpayer dollars to declare the superiority or inferiority of certain races, sexes, and religions is a violation of the Constitution and civil rights law and cannot be tolerated by any government anywhere in the country. Yeah, okay, these people are really out there. Finally, conservatives should gratefully celebrate the greatest pro-family win in a generation, overturning a Roe v. Wade. Now look, a decision that for 5 decades made a mockery of our Constitution and facilitated the deaths of tens of millions of unborn children. But the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. See? But the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. Conservatives in the states and in Washington, including in the next conservative administration, should push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America. You remember, it wasn't that long ago that everybody was saying, we just want to roll this decision over abortion back to the states. It's not, they kept saying it's not a federal issue. This is a states' rights issue. And how many years and decades have we heard that from them over there, trying to get rid of this, overturning Roe v. Wade? How many years have they said that? It's a state's decision. You don't need to be doing that. You don't have the authority at the federal government to do that. Shoot. Yeah, that was just crazy, because that was never their intention. Their intention is to actually to get rid of it, put it back on state level, and then apply to the whole nation what they think is right. Craziness abounds, folks. In particular, the next conservative president should work with Congress to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support, while deploying existing federal powers to protect innocent life and vigorously complying with statutory bans on the federal funding of abortion. Conservatives should ardently pursue these pro-life and pro-family policies while recognizing the many women who find themselves in immensely difficult and often tragic situations, and the heroism of every choice to become a mother. Alternative options to abortion, especially adoption, should receive federal and state support. Okay. So that was just the first promise, folks. and you thought this would be really quick. Let me see here. The next part of it is to dismantle the administrative state. And yeah, this is based on the theory that's the unitary executive theory. It came out of the 80s. Somebody wrote about it in the 1980s when Reagan was president, and it's been written on and elaborated upon many times over the years since then. Basically, the idea is that the president of the United States has the authority, what they're saying under the unitary executive theory is that the president of the United States has the authority to do within the executive branch whatever he wants, he or they or she or whatever, whoever they want, whatever they want. And they mean that, and they're very serious about it. They mean that the president, when he comes into office, is a conservative person, if that's a he. I don't know why I keep using that, because I think that's all they want. But if they get to that place where they're able to do it, then they will set up what Trump did at the end of his administration, Schedule F, which allows the federal government to go in and say that all federal employees are at-will employees, meaning they can be fired at will, hired at will, put in wherever they want to put them in. And at the highest levels within any of those offices or departments or any of the cabinet heads or anything like that, if they perceive that Congress or the Senate will not or is not likely to confirm the one they want, then all they're going to have to do, all they do is then just say, oh, we're just going to make them an acting secretary or acting department head, because then they can get around it that way. They don't even worry about the Senate using those terms. And it's something that's used on both sides, by the way. Both sides have done that, but it is a way to avoid accountability to the Senate, and that this conservative president or a liberal in any case, really, can do what they want in that regard, and just put in whomever they want and let that person run it under an acting capacity. Yeah, there's ways for them to do it, folks. Okay, so keep on going down through here. There's not much down this direction after the horrendous comments that were made in the top part. And it says Congress passes intentionally vague laws that delegate decision making over a given issue to a federal agency. That agency's bureaucrats, not just unelected but seemingly unfireable, then leap at the chance to fill the vacuum created by Congress's preening cowardice. The federal government is growing larger and less constitutionally accountable, even to the president, every year. Yeah. So we know what that's all about, right? So, yeah, they're just trying to make sure that the president, when he comes in, they can actually, just take over the whole of the executive branch and put in whomever he wishes, whether it's cousin Joe Bob or whomever, whether they're qualified or not, have no experience, in any field. You just put whoever they want in there. Okay, and they just go through different departments, talking about all of that. Wait a minute. Woke bureaucrats at the Pentagon force troops to attend training seminars about white privilege. Yeah. And bureaucrats at the State Department infuse foreign policy aid programs with woke extremism about intersectionality and abortion. Oh my God, they're really afraid of that intersectionality stuff, aren't they? Wow. So it just goes right on down through here. That's the second one. The conservative promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats. That's the Schedule F thing. How to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices. And that includes all your D&I offices and stuff like that. Anything that's, represents a minority population in America. Do away with it. That's what they want to do. Or how to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government. And how to restore the American people's constitutional authority over the administrative state, and how to save untold taxpayer dollars in the process. Phew. Finally, the president can restore public confidence and accountability to our most important government function of all, national defense. The American people desire military full of highly skilled servicemen and women who can protect the homeland and our interest overseas. The next conservative president must end the left's social experimentation with the military, restore war fighting as its sole mission, which it is, and set defeating the threat of the Communist Chinese Party as its highest priority. Do we need to pontificate any more on that one? Okay, so defend our nation's sovereignty, our borders, and our bounty against global threats. That's number 3. And let's go on down. Da-da-da-da. And we're looking for the next one. Oops, wait, was that code word stuff? Learn to code. Okay. And going on down, there's not much down through here, in terms of any other thing that we're looking for. Secure our God-given individual right to enjoy the blessings of liberty. Okay, this is the one that's just so hypocritical. Hypocrisy abounds in promise number 4, folks. Secure our God-given individual right to enjoy the blessings of liberty. The Declaration of Independence famously asserted the belief of America's founders that all men are created equal and endowed with God-given rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It's the pursuit of happiness that is central to America's heroic experiment in self-government. When the founders spoke of pursuit of happiness, what they meant might be understood today as, in essence, pursuit of blessedness. No, that wasn't the original interpretation. Actually, the pursuit of happiness was thrown in there because of the term that they didn't want to put in there. That is, an individual must be free to live as his creator ordained to flourish. Jeez, folks. Our Constitution grants us, each of us, the liberty to do what we want, but not what we want, but what we ought. This pursuit of the good life is found primarily in family, marriage, children, Thanksgiving dinners, and the like. Many find happiness through their work. Think of dedicated teachers or healthcare professionals, entrepreneurs or plumbers throwing themselves into their businesses. Anyone who sees a job well done as a personal reward. Religious devotion and spirituality are the greatest sources of happiness around the world. Still others find themselves happiest in their local volunteer communities, their friends, their neighbors, their civic or charitable work. The American Republic was founded on principles prioritizing and maximizing individuals' rights to live their best life or to enjoy what the framers called the blessings of liberty. But obviously that doesn't include the minority populations. That just includes those, the majority population. It's this radical equality. No, they don't believe in this at all, folks. It's radical equality, liberty for all, not just of rights, but of authority, that the rich and powerful have hated about democracy in America since 1776. They resent Americans' audacity in insisting that we don't need them to tell us how to live. It's this inalienable right of self-direction, of each person's opportunity to direct himself or herself and his or her community to the good that the ruling class disdains. Need we say more? Oh my gosh. Left to our own devices, the American people rejected European monarchy. Okay. I need to redress this. Left to our own devices, the American people rejected European monarchy and colonialism, just as we rejected slavery, second-class citizenship for women, mercantilism, socialism, Wilsonian globalism, fascism, communism, and today, wokeism. To the left, these assertions of patriotic self-assurance are just so many signs of our moral depravity and intellectual inferiority. Proof that, in fact, we need a ruling elite making decisions for us. No, we don't think all that crap, but nonetheless, you're entitled to believe it, say it, write it out, put it out there in a document, and persuade a bunch of people to agree with you. But, Robert, you're wrong. Okay, so the promise is, let's see. The United States remains the most innovative and upwardly mobile society in the world. Government should stop trying to substitute its own preferences for those of the people. And the next conservative president should champion the dynamic genius of free enterprise against the grim miseries of elite-directed socialism. Okay. The promise of socialism, communism, Marxism, progressivism, fascism, whatever name it chooses, is simple. Government control of the economy can ensure equal outcomes for all people. The problem is that it's never done so. There's no such thing as the government. Anyway, so you're seeing what we're talking about here in the forward, and where Dr. Roberts has taken this whole thing to go after people that they don't want to be visible in the world, in the United States. They just don't want us to be seen. They don't want to learn about us. They don't want to study us. They just want to delete and excise us and erase us from the whole of the nation and shove us back under the floorboards in the back of the closet. So that's essentially what they're doing. So how can you fight against this stuff? Well, go vote. Go vote. Live your lives authentically. Be out there as much as you possibly can, and go out there and do this. And let them see you. Don't hide and cower from them. Because the moment you start hiding and cowering from them, you'll continue doing that. You'll never be able to pull yourself back out of it. So you have to get out there and fight. Fight, be visible, and be seen and heard. And I'm talking about from the middle of the country, left and right. Across the whole east and west coasts, from the middle outward, or whatever you want to do, you've got to make sure we're doing this in the middle of the country too. Because why? Well, it is not the popular vote that actually gets the president into office. You can have 10 million more votes for a popular candidate. If those votes come from the left coast and the right coast, or the west coast and the east coast, wherever those votes may come from, if you don't have the middle of the country with you on certain things, then the Electoral College votes, if they win the middle, the Electoral College count goes to the one with the highest number of electoral votes. And so that's how it's possible for popular vote to have a 10 million or so lead, basically, or any kind of lead for one person, and then still lose the presidency. That's the way the Constitution's set up. Okay. So you still have to go vote. You still have to go vote. But we've got to focus a lot of energy in the middle of the country, make sure that we can kind of control, or at least do something with having an influence on the electoral votes of those middle states, those flyover states, those areas. We have got to focus there, folks, because that's where we're losing it. Anyway, biggest advice to all of you: go vote, get involved, be active, be seen, be heard, be safe in everything that you do. And let me go back and stop sharing from this screen and go back over to here. And we have one person watching, at least. I don't know. There's probably others on some of the other locations where this thing shows up. So no comments. And with that, I'm going to call it a day. You'll have a great afternoon. Okay.